Welcome everyone to this Oscilio deck tech. I've been wanting to do a deck tech on Oscilio for a while now, and I've got a pretty spicy Cheerios list to showcase. Cheerios means that everything is free. So with this video, I am hoping to showcase what this different take on Oscilio can do, and I'll mention why certain cards don't fit into the philosophy of the deck, which means I will badmouth them, but it's only from the perspective of my mindset with this deck, so please don't fry me in the comments. Think of it more like a thought experiment. After going through all the cards, I'll show how I sideboard as well. And for the video, I'm going to assume that you already know what Oscilio does, but if not, there's loads of good content on YouTube that you can check just to make sure. And before we begin, don't forget to like and subscribe. So the deck philosophy is to just not pay for stuff. Oscilio is special because unlike most Flesh and Blood heroes, his blue base is not just made up of weaker versions of the red and yellow counterparts. No. They are combo pieces with unique effects that are in the deck because they do something when you play them, so I don't want to be pitching them. With that in mind, I will begin the deck tech. As with every deck tech, I'll start off with the equipment. So the only weapon you'll want to run in Oscilio, as you'll know, is Volzar. Then for the headpiece, the only one I'm playing is Flash of Brilliance, and now this next, the chest piece is well, it's this shit little thing. I'm not even bothered to sleeve it. That's how bad it looks, but it's actually cracked. Talk about it in a bit. The arm piece is Ether Bindings of the Third Age, and leg piece, let me just move all those up so you can see it all, is the Lightning Greaves. So, talking about the weapon first, Volzar. The weapon is cracked. It's what makes the deck have that payoff at the end of a turn. The power of this weapon cannot be overstated. It makes every lightning card you play super above rate, and so in this deck, you'll only find lightning cards barring the spells, which are usually chain enders anyway, and a few sideboard cards. Flash of Brilliance is pretty standard in Oscilio these days. You use it to bounce sigils back to your hand. That can be bouncing a sigil connectivity to your lightning to make an embodiment of lightning to make your next turn better, bouncing sigil of Brilliance to draw a card and maybe go off in combo, or bouncing sigil of Ether to make an embodiment or kill your opponent or kill an ally or something. So it's a very, very useful card, especially in a combo deck. If you see a sigil a little bit too early, then Flash of Brilliance can bounce it back and you have access to it when you need it. Now, talking about Old Knocker here, absolutely amazing support for the deck from High Seas. This thing is such an upgrade. So prior to this, I was playing Blossom of Spring as my main chess piece, and now I'm just playing this as my chess piece. We need our chest to give us one resource in order to pay for the one thing that costs a resource in the deck, which is our Lightning Greaves. This means that I'm not on Tunic simply because I don't need it. Instead, I have a chess piece that will always do the one thing that I need it to do. Comparing it to Blossom, it being an instant as opposed to an action means that we're much more we're able to hide the fact that we're going for a combo turn till a bit later in the turn. We can play around Warmongers, and we can also activate it in response to a Frostbite trigger, for example. So there's quite a lot of applications in it being an instant, and the tapping thing never comes up at all. So it is basically, that part is text list. It also blocking one has already won me several games as well. As often a game is close and you don't have the space to go for your perfect combo. So yeah, just all round amazing upgrade for the deck amongst many other things the deck got in High Seas. On to Ether Bindings of the Third Age. This is quite possibly the most powerful arm piece in the entire game of Flesh and Blood. The value potential of this card is unmatched, and you will see that later in this deck we're very well placed to make use of the maximum value possible. Bindings can both contribute to your combo turn, but it can also ensure the follow-up turn is nutty too, and sometimes it's just used to guarantee that we get a surge effect through on a less functional or smaller hand. I've used it many times to kill my opponent on their turn as well, because if you use Flash of Brilliance to bounce the sigil, you can get that amp from the Ether Bindings, which is often enough to get you over the finishing line if you're either bouncing a sigil of Ether or a shot card. The last equipment piece that I'm going to talk about, because it's the last equipment piece, is the Lightning Greaves. So, speaking of most powerful equipment in the game, Greaves has to be the most powerful leg piece in the game. This is used to put together a nutty combo when you draw into said nutty combo. If you've played Oscilio, you know what this is here for. Great piece of equipment, absolutely, you need it. Next, I'll move on to the attack actions. So I am playing 3 copies of Red Blast to Oblivion, 3 copies of Yellow Blast to Oblivion, and 3 copies of Blue Blast to Oblivion. Yes, this is the first 9 of in the deck. Well then, I'll just show the rest of them as well while I'm at it. So 3 current funnel, 3 Gone in a Flash, and 3 Flittering Charge. I don't think I've laid that out very well, but let me just quickly fix it. Blast for me is a card that has always been one of the main defining cards of Oscilio. Gone in a Flash is obviously very strong, but Blast just feels like it was 100% made for Oscilio. Every nutty 40 plus damage combo turn that you do will be because of Blast to Oblivion. On top of that, I like to believe that LSS left us a bit of a clue on how Oscilio should work, and that's oscillating between go turn and setup turn. And Blast to Oblivion is the perfect setup card if you have Sigils on board. As soon as you see your Sigils, the deck starts running like an incredibly smooth engine. So 9 Blast is there to maintain a good flow to your turns, while also providing that potential horrifying combo. The highest damage I've got in this list was 72, and that was all courtesy of Blast to Oblivion. Now, there will be some games where you low roll, and you don't see any Sigils for a long time, and the Blast to Oblivions will feel horrible. But you can console yourself knowing that it was a low roll, and even if that Blast to Oblivion was something different, your hands will still be shit. So who cares, right? The potential by the combo potential you get running these cards and the general consistency boost you get is really, really good. It makes you less reliant on Greaves as well as soon as you've got conductivity up. So 9 Blast to Oblivion has been phenomenal for me. There are other benefits to running 9 as well. It lets you block a bit better and gives you more targets for Somersault. Going back to Ether Bindings, 9 Blasts gives you a much higher ceiling on it. And if you bounce Sigil Brilliance using Flash of Brilliance, instead of going card neutral, you'll actually go card positive if you're going to Blast to Oblivion that Brilliance back. Lastly, another reason I'm on 9 Blast is to make the deck less reliant on Gone in a Flash, because now you can do a combo turn that isn't reliant on seeing Gone in a Flash. So it just gives you another combo avenue, which is very relevant into aggro decks and destructive decks, because oftentimes you're just trying to find that combo as quickly as possible and you need to go. I'll quickly mention Gone in a Flash. This is the main combo card. If you played any games in Oscilio, you know what this card is here for. You get insane value plays off it. You want to see it as soon as possible. 9 Blast is nice, but seeing Gone in a Flash turn 1 is a very comforting feeling. I'll talk about Flittering Charge. This is a great consistency card. It's basically always a starter, and starters are worth their weight in gold in this deck. And lastly, I'll talk about Current Funnel. This is a blue block 3 that you'll sometimes question if it's worth including, but please don't question it. The card is bonkers. It is a key enabler of great non-Greaves turns. The card has a great floor, and its combo potential is so strong. If used to full effect, you get another attack from it and then finish with a spell. That's like 8-ish value from a blue, which is very, very strong. I'll go through the spells next. Bear in mind that this is not my main board and sideboard. This is both of them put together in one big conglomeration. I'll go through the separation later. So for the spells, I am running 3 of the new Shock card, Consigned to Cosmos, really cool card, as you may already know. And then I'm playing 3 copies of Red Etchings of Arcana. I'm playing 3 copies of Yellow Etchings of Arcana. And I'm playing 3 copies of Blue Etchings of Arcana. That is the other 9 of in the deck. And to finish things off, we obviously have the 3 Mind Warp and the 3 Burn Bear. I'm again going to fix that layout. So I'll always play 12 spells in my main board. That feels like the sweet spot for me. The rationale being is that I always want to have a spell on my combo turn, because having Volzar amped for 15 and no spell, just like, it hurts my soul. It hurts my soul. With 12 spells in deck, you have a roughly 40% chance of seeing one in your hand. If we factor in card draw and filtering, then we can increase this slightly. And remember, having a spell in hand adds +1 value to every single lightning card you play. They all block 3 as well, which is very rare in Oscilio, so even if you do unfortunately clog on them, at least you can block out and survive for an extra turn, which is very important. I'll start things off by talking about the new Shock card, Consigned to the Cosmos. This thing seriously raises the floor and ceiling of Oscilio by some considerable margin. It blocks 3, is an instant so you can filter it, and is immune to Arcane Compliance. And the Shock cost 0 is busted. This is exactly what the deck needed. It's such an upgrade for the deck. It's like LSS listened to every single Oscilio player's prayers. The card is really good for killing your opponent on their turn, and it also combines really well with Blast to Oblivion because it can make up for you not having the action point you need to send another attack or a spell. It's not a problem. This is an instant, so you get full damage anyway. Etchings on a combo turn is the best spell you can have. It gets you an extra 4 damage by playing an instant and then Gone in a Flash, or it gets you 8 damage if you have that spare action point. And it also gives you a Sigil for the following turn. So it's great setup and it's more damage, and it's a really good consistency card. If you're comboing on a blast turn and have 2 etchings, and you break your bindings, you can send the first one amped by bindings, grab a Sigil for the extra amp on that Volzar, and then you send in the second etchings. The value this card offers is crazy, especially if you have seen Brilliance early, but you aren't ready to combo, because you now have 9 cards that bring it back, so it doesn't really matter if you've gone and binned it turn 0. So if we consider cards like Sigil of Brilliance, Sigil of Connectivity, Sigil of Lightning, Sigil of Ether, this is the best surge effect in the deck. So let's play 9 so that we can keep recycling if we need to, and we just want to keep that engine rolling as quickly as possible. If you're seeing 1 Etchings of Arcana every turn, and you're getting your surges through, and you're getting a Sigil of Lightning every single turn, you are like, the deck functions like it has an engine at that point. Next there's Mind Warp. This is the only disruptive effect in the deck. It's the card that you are wanting to see as soon as possible into aggro decks, as it's your only way of keeping them in check, really. So very strong card, very good surge effect. Not much else to say, really. Or maybe there is, I just can't think of anything. And lastly for the spells, we've got Burn Bear. This is an insanely good card from High Seas. It's the only card in here that breaks my Cheerios rule, but I think it 100% justifies it because A, most of the time you're discarding it as a popper, so it costs nothing technically, and B, it's a 2-card 6 arcane spell, which is unreal. So there are a few decks that might try and fatigue you, like I'm thinking Jarl if he blows up your boots, and having access to a spell that will go above their arcane barrier by some margin is very, very helpful. I also want to quickly talk about the cards I don't have in this list. So I don't have any of the other shock cards, that being Comet Storm or Null Shock. I don't like having to pitch, as you're usually pitching a card that is good to play. If we look at the shock side of things, Consign to the Cosmos is clearly the best shock. So I don't want to run the other 2 because they're just a worse version of Consign. So we need to look at the left side of these cards. If we look at Null, that effect rarely comes up. It's so niche, I don't feel like it justifies its spot in the deck, based on the fact that I want to run cards that are as relevant as possible, as often as possible. And if you look at Comet Storm Shock, the shock on it costs 2, so it's way worse than the shock on Consign. It does at least block 3, I'll give it that. And just for the record, I don't think these are actually bad cards, I'm just trying to make a case for not playing them. When it comes to Comet Storm, it costs 2 to play, which means you're either pitching one of your yellows or your blues. Your yellows and blues are very good. Your yellows are Brilliance, Channel Lightning Valley. Your blues are your Sigils, your Blink, and your Current Funnels. Most of those, most of the time you don't want to pitch. You lose a lot of value by pitching them. So if we're playing a combo turn, and we've got Gone in a Flash, Blue Instant, and Comet Storm, then we can't play that Gone in a Flash. But if we have that Etchings of Arcana, even in blue, we play that Gone in a Flash, bounce it, play the Etchings, play a Sigil, play the Gone in a Flash. So although Comet Storm looks like it does more damage, on a combo turn or a turn with good go again, it actually does less damage, and that's not very good. I will say it is better maybe in the more mid-range styles, the more like when you have a clunky hand, but even then if you're having to block, it's a 2 for 5, so you're just better off blocking because it blocks 3, in my opinion. So that's why I don't play the other shock cards in this deck. Next, I'll go over the Sigils. I play 15, which means there is a very spicy one in here. To start off with the very non-spicy, but very, very strong, I have 3 copies of Sigil of Brilliance, I then have 3 copies of Sigil of Connectivity, 3 copies of Sigil of Ether, 3 copies of Sigil of Lightning, and to finish things off, I have 3 copies of Sigil of Temporal Manipulation. I'll start by going this way. Sigil of Brilliance. This spec is the reason you play Oscilio. It is definitely the best card in the deck. Every disgusting 40 plus damage turn will somehow involve Brilliance. The sooner you see it, the better. With 9 blasts, this is a monster card, and with 9 etchings, you have more access to it. So in theory, you have access to 12 Sigils of Brilliance over the course of a game, maybe even more as well with your blasts. It's just insane. It's this combo piece. I wish you could search it. It's amazing. I'll talk about Connectivity next. 9 Blast to Oblivion means that Connectivity becomes a very, very important card to see. As soon as you have this one on board, you have guaranteed setup for the rest of the game. It also increases the consistency of Blast, as now you only need 1 instant in hand to make use of Blast. I can't emphasize enough how much you want to see this card as opposed to in maybe other variants of Oscilio. This also makes Balzar free for the rest of the game. The Arcane Shelter effect is actually not very desirable. I don't like it being popped for Arcane, even in stuff like Florian, Vincent. I'd actually rather it stayed around just for my consistency, but it is what it is. The next one to talk about is Sigil of Ether. This one is really cool. Out of all the sigils, it is the most tricky and versatile. Amp 1 may seem underwhelming at first, but if it pops at the start of your turn, you're immediately asking your opponent a difficult question because they have no way to know if they should pitch for it to stop the surge going through, or if they're wasting a whole card for 1 damage. So yeah, there are just many applications for this card. Because I'm on 9 blasts, it acts as a pseudo spell at the end of a chain that is immune to arcane compliance. At the start of your turn, you can use it to pop your sigil conductivity to gain that action point, and you can use it to kill your opponent on their turn because you can use Flash of Brilliance to bounce it back to hand and ping them for whatever damage you want to do. So really cool, lots of nice interactions that you can use with the card. It's the perfect wizard card. I'll next talk about Sigil of Lightning. This one is pretty straightforward. It gives you go again. It amps 1 when you play it. Super strong consistency card, and I will say that in more mid-range style Oscilio lists, I tend to prefer Sigil Lightning over Connectivity, but I really do think that in this list, Connectivity is of a higher value than Lightning generally. And now I'll talk about Sigil of Temporal Manipulation. Firstly, look how nice that extended art looks. Look how nice that card is. It's so pretty. Why do you not want to run it? Now, this is definitely cuttable, but before you cut it, at least hear me out. So, Temporal has the ability to do several things for the deck, and I'll only ever side this in against aggro decks because A, when you run 9 blasts, you really want to see sigils, and 12 in deck is not quite enough to see one quickly all the time, so adding another sigil really boosts when you need that consistency most, basically. B, into aggro decks, I am digging through my deck as quickly as possible to find combo. So banishing the top card off my deck gets me churning through the deck faster. The odds of me finding... I'll go through the odds of... So there's basically 3 outcomes that can happen when you trigger this. Outcome 1 is the most likely, where you banish an instant or an attack action that you don't care about. All you've done there is you've churned through the deck faster. The second most likely outcome is you banish a spell, and that's amazing value, especially in an aggro race. The value in that is insane. So that's what we're playing it for. And the third outcome is the least likely, and that's where you end up banishing Sigil of Brilliance or Gone in a Flash. The latter of that isn't as bad. Banishing Brilliance is always bad. Sometimes you'll find Gone in a Flash early. As soon as you have it, it doesn't matter. But basically, aggro decks, they're so fast. Those games last like 4 turns, and so I want to see my cards as quickly as possible. I need to high roll. I'll put this in to increase my chances of that. It might sometimes come back to bite me, but because the games are so short, you can just say YOLO and go for it, and whatever happens, happens. And C, the last case for running it, in my opinion, is if you're in a really desperate spot. You can bounce this with your Flash of Brilliance, and if you hit a spell off the top, you can kill your opponent on their turn. Kind of similar to Sigil of Ether, but it's possibly more damage, but it's also not guaranteed. This is only in like worst case scenario when you've got no other out and you're about to die. It's like the Hail Mary, but it is something to consider. It's also a really cool play to make, and your opponent will forever remember it. So yeah. To finish things up, I'll go through the non-sigil instants. So we have, to kick things off, 3 copies of Electrostatic Discharge in red, Somersault in red, Lightning Press in red, Sigil of Solace in red, and then for the yellows, well, the only yellow that's not Sigil Brilliance is Channel Lightning Valley, and then for the blues, I'm playing 3 copies of Blink, 3 copies of High Voltage, and, oh, there it is, 3 copies of Snag. That's very nicely symmetrical, right? Okay, so the instance. Discharge. This is the best instant you want to see on your Gone in a Flash combo turn because it's basically 1 card line if you have a spell at the end of it. Electromagnetic Somersault. Even better in a list with 9 Blast to Oblivion because you go Gone in a Flash, Sigil Brilliance, Blast Oblivion, Somersault, bounce your Blast Oblivion, draw a card from the Sigil Brilliance. Really, really strong, and also a very useful defensive tool as well. Now, Lightning Press, this is in here because it's a card that really improves my bad matchups, those being like Azalea and Prism. So into Prism, it turns your attacks into poppers. Yes, you're giving 2 cards to pop an Angel, but you're basically buying yourself an entire extra turn to find combo, which is very, very strong. And into Azalea, it is something that lets you deal damage while still under red in the ledger. And again, being on 9 Blast Oblivions means that seeing this card can help make up if I don't have an action point after playing the blast, because I'm still getting damage through, I'm getting the blast effect off, so I'm still actually doing quite a good turn. And it's also just good into the slower decks that are maybe trying to fatigue you or block you out quite a lot. And if we look at it on a Gone and Flash combo turn, you can play it on the stack before Gone and Flash resolves if you want the damage through, but if you want to just bounce Gone and Flash and send it again, which is more value, then that doesn't seem great. But it's the same as Somersault on combo turn, or a Sigil that you've already got, or a Blink that you don't need, it just amps 1. So I don't see that as a reason to not play it, because the upsides are very, very good. Now, Sigil Solace, I side this in for matchups where I just want that extra life buffer. This is usually into the aggro decks, so I can hopefully buy another turn, or into something like Verdance that can kill me on my own turn, or a Vinset or something like that. Very useful card. If you play it with Gone and Flash, it's a 2-card 11, very strong value. Seeing it turn 0, bumps you up to 39, 42 life if you're even lucky, very, very strong. And then Channel Lightning Valley, people often say that it's not very good in Oscilio compared to Aurora, but I think it's maybe better because we're a combo deck and we're trying to get to our combo as quickly as possible. Channel Lightning Valley is a card that does that, but also it applies so much pressure, it really asks a lot of questions of your opponent. A lot of people will often overly respect this and just block you out, and you're so happy with that because you've now basically got free tempo. So yeah, very strong card. Not usually keeping it around for too long in this deck, but you don't need to. And if you are playing with Blast, what you can do is you can play the Blast, channel, bounce whatever Sigil is sitting on the board to stop you pitching, maybe pitch a card, arsenal that Sigil, draw your card from the damage, etc. There's just a lot of lines you can take with Blast to make sure it stays around if you need to when you're taking setup turns. Next we've got Blink. This is just a solid card that makes your non-combo turns a lot stronger. It's very, very good with 9 Blast because you can play out a Sigil, go Blast, Blink, bounce that Sigil, you've got your action point back, you have an embodiment, you're good to go. And on your combo turn, if you have Etchings of Arcana, it's very, very strong because it gets you 2 action points on your combo turn. So once you've finished with your last Gone and Flash, last instant, you play the Etchings, amp it, you get a Sigil back, and you send 8 more damage if you want. So very, very strong. Then talk about High Voltage. High Voltage is a card that I wasn't a fan of for a while. It looks like it's a 2-value blue, which isn't great. But this deck is running spells that have surge effects. And so if you are getting surge effects through because of High Voltage, then that is more than 2 value. And I really want to get my surge effects through, especially with 9 Etchings, because I want to get Sigils back. I want to be playing with as many cards every turn as possible. And that's why I include High Voltage, because there's a lot of decks out there that will run AB3, and so sometimes the deck can struggle to get above AB3. This card makes it super trivial, and it's a really good addition to the deck. And it also increases your kill potential on your opponent's turn with your shot cards as well. The last card in the deck is Snag. This is in here purely for assassins. It's a card that lets you guarantee the value of your blocks. Some games it does nothing, but some games your opponent goes Bonds of Agony with 4 cards still in hand, and you just give them an equipment piece, and it feels amazing. You feel the value on that is so strong, you just have to play it. And even if you filter it turn 0, your opponent now knows you have it, and they have to consider that when they're making their plays. So Assassin is a very, very tough matchup for Oscilio. This card is the definition of a silver bullet. And now quickly, to finish things off, go over the way I sideboard into certain heroes. So the main deck is comprised of 48 cards, which means we have 12 sideboard slots into every single hero. Now, if I'm going into, say, a Prism, I would choose my Burn Bears, I would choose my Lightning Presses, my Sigils of Solace, and my Mind Warp. So Burn Bear is pretty obvious, Lightning Press, again, pretty obvious, Sigil of Solace, I'm just trying to stall out a game until I see combo, and I consider Prism an aggro matchup, so Sigil, if it buys us another turn, perfect. And Mind Warp is disruption into an aggro deck, is very, very strong. If we're talking an aggro deck like Dash.io or Syndra, I put in 3 Sigils of Solace for the same reasons. I put in 3 copies of Mind Warp and the 3 yellow Etchings, and I'd also put in the 3 Temporal Manipulation. I'm just trying to go as quickly as possible and see combos as quickly as possible, disrupt them as quickly as possible, keep life total as high as possible, everything like that. And then for the longer matchups, think like a Florian, I would play into Florian, I would play my High Voltages, my Lightning Presses, and I'd play the Etchings of Arcana. I wouldn't play Mind Warp. I don't really care about disrupting their hand. I want to keep my Sigils going. So that's kind of what I'd play into Florian. Don't need to play Sigil because that deck is quite straightforward when it comes to damage. And I don't want to put Sigil Temporal Manipulation in against decks that could mid-range or kind of fatigue, because then I'm just getting, in most cases, a card out my deck, which is damage out the deck, which I don't want. And obviously, Snag, as I said before, that's just for assassins. And that's kind of like the basic overview of kind of like my rationale to sideboarding. It's not hero specific, like Dash.io, Syndra, those kind of aggro decks, they're all the same. I just have the same approach to it, which makes sideboarding quite nice. And there you have it. That's the Cheerios Oscilio deck tech. Hopefully you learned something useful, something new, and maybe you'll go and take this for a spin. It's a really fun deck. You will feel amazing when you're just going blast, 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 and you hit your opponent for like 30 plus arcane damage. So really fun. It is a slightly different take on Oscilio compared to kind of the more mid-range kind of pitchy style lists. Those are also good. I don't think there's anything wrong with playing those at all, just for the record. I just like kind of going unga bunga, not paying for anything, just playing out all my cards, that sort of thing. If you have any questions, then feel free to drop a comment. I'll always get back to you. I enjoy talking about Oscilio, and there might be a few things that I missed or need to clarify, so more than happy to do so. And if you're still watching at this point, then have a good day.